Heathens. So this video, I might try to insert some footage at some point in the video because I have actually already done this. The whole get ready with me and movie review for this movie. And I was probably about 3 or 4 minutes away from finishing. And, happened to look up and realized I wasn't filming anymore. And I was like, crap, wonder where it left off. Like, I'll just pick back up and re-say whatever it missed. What it missed was all of it. Somehow it just... whenever it stopped, I still don't know. I don't know why either. It just decided to not save whatever it had already caught. So, we are going to be talking about the Norwegian horror film Good Boy, and, you know, if you've seen my other videos and most of these type of general movie review videos on YouTube, I am going to be giving spoilers. So if you want to watch it and you haven't, go watch it and then come back. It's free on Tubi. I'm giving spoilers. It's weird, okay? This is going to be a ride. So, it is a Norwegian film, so you do need subtitles unless you can understand. So I used subtitles. So it starts out, you meet the main male character, Christian, and he's at home, like, making himself breakfast and, like, scrolling through Tinder. And within the first, like, 5 minutes of the movie, you learn the main catch. Because when he goes to feed his dog, it's not exactly a normal dog. It's, like, straight up a human in a, like, fur dog costume, okay? And, like, the face looks really good, but you can definitely tell immediately, like, walking on knees, you can tell it's not, like, real fur. And it's like, oh, okay, because it's, like, making dog sounds. He's feeding it out of a dog bowl. Dog's name is Frank, okay? So, anyway, fast forward a bit. He matches with a girl on Tinder named Sigrid. He sends her a message. They wind up meeting up, I guess, the next day to go on a date to get food or whatever. And so he gets there, and he's drinking his beer and waiting. And she hasn't shown up yet. And so he keeps, like, pulling out his phone and checking the time and checking for messages, and she hasn't shown up. She hasn't sent him anything. So right as he gets up to leave, she shows up and apologizes for being late, and he's like, no, it's fine, like, you're here now, let's just enjoy it. You know, she's like, I'm just bad at time management, like, I don't have a good excuse. And they start talking. She's talking about going to school. She's taking a year of psychology because she didn't have good enough grades to get a bachelor's, which I guess is, you know, something that they do over there. I don't know if that's strictly Norwegian or whatever. Like, only letting you take a year of a program or something. I just opened the palette I was going to use, and one of the shades is suddenly smashed. And I just dumped it all out trying to show you. Cool. Love that. Fantastic. I have nothing to put it in. Okay. Well, hang tight for a moment. I'll be back. Okay, sorry about that. Back to what I was saying. You know, they're chit-chatting. He tells her, like, he's really impressed that she has a job even as a cashier, because he doesn't think he could do that because he's very, like, socially awkward. And, you know, of course, this date's been going pretty good, so she's like, I don't think you're awkward. And he's like, okay, yeah, maybe not with just one person, but, like, with crowds, like, I don't do well with a lot of people. So they start to wrap the date up. I mean, they've been there a couple hours, from what it seems like. And he asks her if she wants to come home with him. And, you know, she thinks about it for a second, but agrees. And, he takes her home. And, you know, he's, like, showing her around the house, because it's this, like, larger house. And she's like, oh my god, like, is this really where you live? And he's like, yeah. She's like, and you really live here alone? Like, this house is huge. He's like, well, yes, no, I have a dog, but, like, there are no other people. It's just me and Frank. And she's like, okay. She's like, I like dogs. What kind of dog is it? He's like, that's kind of hard to explain. She's like, I don't know what that means. Like, what kind of dog is it? And he's like, that's hard to explain. And she's like, okay, you know, whatever. Like, maybe I'll meet your dog at some point. So, fast forward, things progress, and it's insinuated, at least in my opinion, that they sleep together, because she wakes up in his bed the next morning, and like, he goes and makes her breakfast, and, you know, she's just elated because Christian is, like, attractive and he's funny. He does tell her that the large house he did inherit from his parents, who have since passed. You know, and she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. You know, he's like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm not over it, but, like, it's not that big of a deal anymore. And, I'm just getting crazy with this eyeshadow. But anyway, he's, like, making them breakfast, and he, you know, makes their bowls or plates or whatever, and then he makes the bowl for Frank, and he goes to put it on the floor and, like, calls for Frank to come get it. You know, she gets kind of excited, because she's like, ooh, I get to see the dog. And then she sees the dog, and obviously, like I said, it's very obvious what is going on there. So she's immediately like, what the heck is that? She freaks out, and she's like, I'm sorry, I've got to go. Like, I can't be here. And he's like, what's wrong? And she's like, that's a person in a dog costume. And Christian's like, no, he's a dog. And he's like, you know, he wants to be a dog, so I just let him be a dog. And she's like, yeah, no, this is weird. Like, I don't want any of this. So, you know, she goes to leave, and he's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I should have kind of told you about Frank beforehand so that you were prepared. But I think if I explained to you the situation, you would understand. And she's like, no, I don't want an explanation. I don't want to understand. I just want to go home. So she asks him to take her home, because he gave her a ride there. And he does. And he drops her off, and she walks into her, like, little apartment dorm thing. And her roommate's there, like, waiting. And she's like, ooh, walk of shame? Like, you didn't come home last night. And she's like, no, like, the date actually went really well. He made me breakfast, blah, blah, blah. So she's telling her, you know, about, like, the guy. And the roommate asks if she has, like, any pictures of him. And, so she pulls up, I'm assuming still Tinder, on her phone, and shows her roommate his picture. And the roommate's immediately, no, like, you're messing with me. That's not him. And Sigrid's like, yeah, it is. Like, this is Christian. Why? And the roommate's like, you did not go on a date with Christian Iverson. And Sigrid's like, do you know him? And the roommate's like, I wish, like, he's the son of whatever his father's name was, Iverson, he's like a multi-millionaire, oh my god, girl, like, I can't believe you went out with, like, one of the richest people around here, da-da-da-da-da, you're going on a second date, right? And that's when Sigrid's like, I don't know, you see, here's the situation. And she tells her roommate about Frank. And the roommate's like, okay, yeah, that's weird, but is it like a sexual thing or something? And Sigrid's like, honestly, I don't know. Like, I didn't stick around for an explanation. I just asked him to bring me home. And, you know, the roommate talks to her and she's like, you know, maybe you're being a little hasty. Like, maybe you should give him a chance to explain, because while it is very weird, like, innately it doesn't sound dangerous, and if it's not sexual, like, you know, just maybe overlook it. The guy seems like a catch, right? So Sigrid's like, you know, yeah, I guess you might be right, because, like, everything else was pretty great, so maybe I'm overreacting. And they, like, start looking up stuff online about, like, puppy play and stuff. Well, fast forward, she gets out of the shower, and Christian actually calls her. And, you know, at first he's kind of nervous, because he's like, you know, is it okay that I'm calling you? And she's like, yeah, it's fine. And he's like, I'm really sorry again about earlier. Like, I know that I should have explained beforehand, because I can definitely understand how that would be, you know, a strange situation. And Sigrid's like, no, it's my fault. You know, I should have given you a chance to explain. It's not your fault. And so he asks her to come back over to his place the next night for dinner. And she accepts. And so we fast forward to him coming to pick her up for their, like, dinner date the next night. And I think he says he's gonna make him carbonara. Not that it matters. It, like, it just popped in my head. So, anyway, the roommate finds out she's going back out with him, and she's like, yeah, okay, see, like, this may not be as big of a deal as you're making it out to be. So, she does tell Sigrid, though, at some point, it may actually be after this, but I don't want to forget to mention it. She does tell Sigrid, you know, you need to be harder to get, because he's used to kind of getting whatever he wants, because he's got money. So, like, don't be too easy and let him get bored with you. So, anyway, we fast forward to them in the kitchen, Sigrid and Christian. And he's like, you know, okay, can I explain about Frank? And she's like, yeah, you know, again, I should have let you, I'm sorry. So Christian explains that Frank is an old school friend, like, they've been friends since they were little. And Frank, like, was an outcast and didn't really get along with the other kids. And Christian had a lot of friends, but he explains that once he quit, like, buying them stuff and giving them gifts and giving them candy and stuff, he found out they weren't really his friend, you know? But Frank was still his friend. Like, Frank liked him for who he was. But Frank wanted to be a dog. And since he had no other friends and therefore no other masters, Christian felt like it was his obligation to, like, take him in and take care of him. And Sigrid's like, okay, still really weird. Like, I don't understand why he would want to be a dog. But, like, that's really sweet, I guess. Like, I feel bad for this guy. I guess that, excuse me, makes a little more sense. And she asks to actually officially meet Frank. And he's like, are you sure? Like, you're being serious? She's like, yeah, like, I'm never gonna learn to get used to him unless I, you know, get to know him. And Christian's like, okay, yeah, I'm excited. He's like, but just remember, do not speak to him like he's a human. He's a dog. And she's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll work on that. So he calls Frank into the room, and Frank gets all excited and like jumps up on Singrid's lap and is like rubbing all over her face and like just all up on her. And at some point Christian's like, okay, get down. And he won't. And so Christian gets loud with him. He's like, get down, get off of her, go to bed. And so Frank finally does. And of course now Christian's freaking out again because he's like, oh my god, like, I thought this was gonna go good. I'm so sorry. I can't believe he did that. You know, and she's like, no, it's fine. Like, it's really okay. And, he's like, okay, like, if you're sure, like, I'm still really embarrassed, but if you're sure that it's fine. And, so, fast forward, they're in bed together, and, she's like, I got a weird question. He's like, what's that? She's like, does Frank have sex? And he kind of stops for a minute, and he's like, I mean, not unless he's doing it behind my back, because, you know, we don't have anyone come over, really, and he doesn't go anywhere, so I don't think so. She's like, do you think he wants to? And Christian's like, why are you offering? And she's like, yeah. Which, okay, when I first saw this scene, admittedly, I was like, what is happening? Okay? Like, not where I was expecting this movie to go. However, it appeared to have been a joke, and I just originally missed it, because again, I'm watching this horror movie. It's already incredibly weird, not like normal horror movies, so I'm like, at this point, it could go any which way, and I can't say that I'd be horribly surprised, you know? Like, because I don't know what's happening and what is coming. And, then he's like, okay, well, let me ask you something. She's like, okay, what? And then he's like, actually, never mind. Like, it's too early. She's like, no. I asked you my really weird question, so, like, you have to now. And he's like, okay, well, would you want to go to the cabin with us this weekend? Just me, you, and Frank. Like, go away for the weekend. And she's thinking about it, and she's like, yeah, sure, what the hell, why not? So, she agrees to go with him to the cabin for the weekend, and, he takes her home, like, to get ready for her stuff, or to get her stuff ready for the trip. And she's like, because her roommate's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you getting stuff ready for? So she tells her roommate that they're going to be going to the cabin for the weekend, and the roommate's like, whoa. Okay, first off, I said play hard to get. Second off, you don't think this is, like, a little sudden? Like, you going away with him for the whole weekend? That is a little weird to me. And Singrid's like, I mean, yeah, it's kind of strange, but, like, he's really nice, like, you know, he's got a cabin, it's just gonna be me, him, and the dog, like, what could really go wrong, you know? Like, I really like him. And the roommate's like, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the roommate's name right now, but the roommate's like, okay, you know what, fine, like, you're an adult, you can make your own decisions here, I'm just expressing my concern, like, have fun, let me know what's going on. And, you know, Singrid leaves. It shows them getting up to the cabin. It's a nice cabin, like, up out in the woods. And, I feel like I need something on the inner half of my eye to level this out, because it's going, like, all over my nose. So they get in there, he's showing her, of course, like, around the cabin, And she's like, okay, well, where are the bedrooms? And he's like, well, that's one of the things. Like, there's only one room, so Frank's gonna have to sleep in there with us. She's like, okay, a little strange, but sure, that's fine. So, of course, my brain goes back to the whole joke, and I'm like, where are we going with this? If you catch my drift. So, anyway, fast forward, he's making them dinner. Now, my timeline of events here does get a little blurry because everything happens in this scenario a little quickly. So he gets them dinner, and at some point, like, I guess he gets up and walks away, and Frank, like, leaps onto Sigrid, and, like, through the dog mask, tells her, like, in full normal English, he's crazy, we need to get out of here, he's an absolute psycho, please help me escape. And so Sigrid's just like, what just happened? So, you know, she's immediately completely on edge and, like, needs more information, you know, because that's incredibly sudden, that's out of nowhere, and now she's really freaked out. Oh, before this, by the way, another reason she's even more freaked out. Right before that, she had, like, checked her phone, and he's like, is it something important? She's like, no, not really. He's like, okay, well, how about for the weekends, we put our phones away? We don't need them on the trip, like, this is just for me and you to get to know each other. If we need them, we'll still have them, but we don't need them 24/7. So, eventually she agrees, and he goes, puts their phone in a little box, and then takes them somewhere in the house. He doesn't tell her where, tells her, you know, she doesn't need to know because they're not going to need them, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, Frank gets back on the floor and goes back to eating, and she's still kind of sitting there, like, in complete shock. She's like, I don't know what to make of the information that was just told to me. And, like, understandably so. Because, like, on one hand, you're like, okay, if that is the truth, then why and how is he still part of that situation? You know, or at least I was. Because we have seen Christian leave him at home, like, by himself. Like he did when he went to go meet Sigrid for their first date. So, anyway, Christian gets back, and she's, like, playing off that she's feeling sick. And so, she doesn't eat, but she's like, I have an idea. How about I take Frank for a walk, get to know him a little bit, and while I'm gone, you come up with a fun surprise, a little activity for us to do, and then we can do that when I get back. And he's like, okay, yeah, I like that idea. I think that's really smart. So, he gets Frank's leash and everything, and she takes Frank up into the woods, and, she's like, okay, you can get up, you can talk to me, like, you can walk like normal, and Frank's like, no, shut up, lower your voice, he's probably listening, I'm not getting up, get down here and pretend like you're petting me. She's like, okay, whatever. So she does, and he's telling her, like, the guy's crazy, they're not safe, she's not safe, and Sigrid's like, okay, well, we're in the woods, like, he's in the house, why don't we go ahead and run? We can get away right now. And Frank's like, no, like, I'm sure he's already planned for that, like, he's really smart, he's gonna know something's up, we have to unalive him. Like, that's the only way out of this. And, he eventually talks Sigrid into it. So they get back to the house, and Christian asks Sigrid if Frank had pottied, to which she says no. And he's like, okay, well, I'll take him out then. So he does. And while he's doing this, Sigrid goes and takes a knife and hides it upstairs, under her pillow, like a large butcher knife type thing. Well, in the meantime, Christian comes back and goes into the bedroom where she is. Like, she's about to get ready for a shower, and he's got a fresh thing of sheets in his hand. Like, new sheets, new pillow covers, everything. And she, like, freaks out for a minute because she just put the knife under her pillow. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Everything's fine. And he's like, well, don't you want to sleep on clean sheets 2 nights in a row? Wouldn't that be really nice? And she's like, no, it's fine. And he's like, no, seriously, like, let's just change the sheets. And she's like, I'll do it. I feel like I should be pulling my weight around here a little bit more, you know. And so he's like, all right, fine. But there better not be any wrinkles, okay? She's like, yeah, okay. So she, like, changes the bed, goes to shower. Well, after she gets out of the shower and she's, like, looking in the mirror, he comes up to the door and he's like, I need you to come to the bedroom. She's like, okay. So she goes out there and, like, she's still wrapped up in her towel and she's super nervous because she's like, oh my god. And he's standing beside the bed and he's like, what's wrong with the bed? She's like, I don't know what you're asking. He's like, yes, you do. I'll try again. What's special about the bed? She's like, I really don't know. And she's, like, freaking out right now. Because she thinks that he has found the knife or something. And he's like, starts to get really close to her and gets really loud. And he's like, the sheet is too loose. Like, next time we do it, I'm gonna do it right because you don't know how to. And she's, like, freaking out. And he, like, starts laughing. He's like, I'm just messing with you. It's fine. He's like, dinner will be ready in a few minutes. She's like, okay. It was like, that was terrifying. And, you know, he said he was just kidding, but she's already freaked out about everything. So she's like, yeah, I need to get out of here. So she winds up trying to sneak out. He catches her, they go on a little walk, they wind up making out. So fast forward a few more scenes, and they're in the kitchen. He makes her a drink, and they're just sitting there talking, and, she's like, no, I'm starting to feel really bad, like, I need to go to bed, and he's like, are you okay? And she's like, I don't know, I'm just really, really tired. And he's like, okay, like, that's fine, let's go to bed. Well, as she stands up, she, like, falls over, like, passing out, and he catches her and, like, carries her into the bedroom. So, we fast forward through the night, and she wakes up in the bed next to him. I think it's, like, the middle of the night still. But anyway, she, like, it's like, oh, you know, he brought me to bed, everything's fine. Well, she reaches, like, her arm out and realizes the knife's not under her pillow. So she immediately starts freaking out, and she's, like, feeling the bed and, like, feeling around. And she's like, oh my god, where did it go? And, he, during all this, I guess, wakes up. And he sits up. And he's like, follow me. We're going to the living room. And she's like, okay, like, obviously he knows something. Jig's up. What do I do? Like, there's nothing I can do other than follow him right now. And so she gets up and she follows him into the living room. And he, you know, has her sit down. He pulls a chair over in front of her. And he's like, you know, what's going on? And she's like, nothing. No, everything's fine. And he pulls out a phone, presumably his, and plays a recording of her and Frank's conversation from in the woods. about needing to unalive him and get away. So, like, he obviously was in some capacity listening and recorded it. And he's like, you know, I'm incredibly disappointed in you. Like, I was hoping I could trust you. This is ridiculous. He's like, but even if I didn't have this, as soon as Frank got back, he told me what happened, you know? Like, he immediately came clean. And she's like, what? Like, why would he do that? And he then pulls out of the drawer beside him the knife from the bedroom. And he's like, you know, again, I thought I could trust you. Like, I really am disappointed. This is so awful. So this is what you've done. And he takes her into another room where Frank is in, like, a little dog cage. And has, like, his hood mask thing pulled back. And is gagged. Like, an actual ball gag. And, she's freaking out. She's like, oh my god, oh my god. And Christian's like, yeah, this is your fault. And he, like, beats Frank a little bit. And he's like, so, you know, now you both get to suffer. I think Frank's suffered enough. So now it's your turn. And he, like, pushes her to the side. And he gets down on the ground because Frank's cage is locked. So he pulls out the keys and unlocks the cage and, like, reaches in and is trying to, like, kind of play around with Frank and is like, oh, don't be scared, it's just me. Like, it's just me, everything's fine. And, Frank, like, bites him when he gets the ball gag out. So Christian, like, rolls over and is freaking out. Frank jumps on top of him and is attacking him. And in the meantime, Sigrid... Sorry, I was trying to see if I had a spoolie somewhere around here. Because, right there. But I'll just add a little more. Sigrid realizes that the keys are hanging off of the cage because they're still in the lock. And there's not just one key on it. So she's like, oh my god, okay, that's the house key. So while Frank is over there in the corner on top of Christian, she grabs the house key, or the keys in general, off of the cage and, like, runs out the room. And she gets to the hallway door, which leads outside, unlocks it, and just starts running off. Like, straight into the woods. Oops. Yeah, that was way too much. So at this point, obviously, they don't know what's going on. Christian is livid and gets Frank back into the cage, like, puts the ball gag back on him. I think has kicked him a couple times at this point. And, like, goes to leave the room because I guess in his mind he's thinking she just took off from the room when the whole fight went down. But then as he walks past the door, found a spoolie, he realizes, like, it's open, or, like, maybe somehow he can tell that it's unlocked or been opened. I don't really know. So he, like, starts freaking out, and he goes back to Frank, and he's like, this is your fault, like, you did this. And he's like, we're going out to the barn. So he gets Frank, puts him on a leash, and is, like, dragging him through the yard over to this barn. And he puts these, like, big speakers on the floor, puts Frank inside another cage, puts some headphones on, and is just, like, beating the crap out of the cage with this, like, baseball bat, and screaming and telling Frank to bark. And so then it, you know, kind of flashes back and forth between that and Sigrid running through the woods. And she's screaming for help, and at some point she just, like, collapses. And then I think she's still on the ground. She might have just stood back up, but at some point she can hear Frank screaming from the barn, because at this point, Christian has taken him back out of the cage, opened the rear end area of the dog costume, and is bare butt spanking Frank. So, again, another moment of like, what am I watching? Somehow this movie just keeps taking turns that make it weirder, which at the same time does make it more interesting, because a lot of horror movies, I feel like at this point, have become pretty predictable. So it was nice to have one catch me off guard and be like, what is happening? But it's a weird movie. Anyway, so she can hear him screaming, and she's like, okay, you know what? I've got to go back for Frank. Like, he's the only reason I know what's going on. And, granted, he's also the only reason that she's in this current situation, but Lord knows what may have happened otherwise, you know? And, because we still don't know the real truth behind the Frank situation. We just know that, Christian's version of events must not be true from earlier. And so she grabs, she's going like back up through the woods to the barn house area, and she gets this big branch and carries it with her like as a weapon. Hold on. Okay, so she carries it with her as a weapon, and gets up to the barn, and he is still, like, spanking Frank, and she walks in, and Frank happens to see her out of the corner of his eye, and turns his head just enough to where Christian also turns his head, like, right as she swings the branch, and, like, knocks him hard on the head, and he, like, falls over, and, like, Frank collapses to the ground because he's been being kicked, and hit, and, like, spanked, and so I'm sure on top of everything, like, his legs have got to be, like, on fire, right? I'm actually really happy with this look, y'all. But anyway, I'm gonna finish the rest of this movie real quick. So, you know, she's trying to pick Frank up, and she's like, come on, we gotta go, like, you have to stand up, we have to get out of here. And, like, right as she manages to get him up and, like, on her shoulder, and they're, like, getting to the door of the barn, Christian stands back up, and I don't know what he has in his hands. Could be the baseball bat from earlier, but he, like, swings it and knocks her out. So, of course, her and Frank both collapse. So, we get a glimpse of him feeding Frank in the cage, and then, like, he also, I think, spits in his food. Like, he's still really mad. And then he goes out to the barn, and when he opens the door, you see this little mattress in the corner, and Sigrid, as a dog, tied up and chained to the wall. And of course, she's acting like a dog, and she's all excited to have her food, and, like, is panting. And he's like, are you happy to see me? Like, if you're a good girl, you can sleep in the house tonight. And she gets all excited, and he puts the food down, and then he goes in the house and puts down one more bowl of food. And it's like, okay. So at first I thought maybe it was a fast forward to where she and Frank were both in the house. No, it's a child in, like, a dog onesie. And he, like, reaches his hand in and starts eating food out of the dog bowl. And that's where it ends. So, my big question, and it seems to have a lot of debate online because I did go look, because I was like, what did I just watch? I'd say solid 8.5 out of 10 though, y'all, not gonna lie. I was really, really impressed with the fact that I kept getting caught off guard, and I was like, whoa. But there seems to be some debate, so if you've seen it, I want your input on which one you think happened. This child, right? Do you think it's Christian and Sigrid's? Like, maybe at some point during this, he had gotten, or in the midst between, gets her pregnant? Or do you think, kind of reaching back again to that joke, that he made that happen and it's Sigrid and Frank's child? I don't know. There were a few people online that said that in the show, when she, like, throws up and is losing her appetite, it's because she's already pregnant. And it's like, I don't really think they've known each other long enough for that to be a thing, because the movie makes it seem like they've only known each other for like a week at this point, and maybe even a couple days. And then on top of that, they more show it like she throws up because she just made out with him, knows that he's dangerous and is freaking out, and lost her appetite because she's terrified and wants to leave. So, you know, I guess it could go a bunch of different ways, but I would love to know y'all's thoughts. If you watched it, what did you think about it? Because this was a weird one. Like, I cannot lie, but it was good. Would highly, highly recommend for anyone that's into, like, psychological thrillers. And, I mean, obviously, I was about to say, if you want to, like, be surprised, but if you just watch this whole thing and you haven't seen it yet, you're not really going to be surprised, because kind of just gave away the whole story, which is the point. But anyway, let's look at this makeup look. Didn't want to try to forget getting my natural shot, like, outside. This is a fully shaded area, and then the sun's, like, right above me, so I'm gonna have to, like, look up into the air. But love this eyeshadow. And that's it. I really appreciate you guys being here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up so that I know this is the kind of content you are interested in. If you want to see more of this content by me, please subscribe, because I plan on continuing to do these videos kind of intermingled. There have been a lot more recently because I've kind of had some in the queue when I was having some filming difficulties and editing difficulties, so there might be a little spurge of them right here. But anyway, I really appreciate y'all, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.